in the Finding the Purusha Through Balancing Poses workshop series. So this is a mini workshop series, and are you able to see the screen okay, or is this it's
Really?
are you able to see it, Anya? Okay. Okay, so I will just do a short recap of what we saw last time. Uh, so last time we saw the concept of Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is the Atma that is in the body. Prakriti is the body, senses, everything. We also saw that the Purusha, according to yoga philosophy, it moves from one body to another. We saw this very famous shloka from the Bhagavad Gita. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praktihi dhirastatra namuhyati. Just as a person throws away worn out clothes and puts on ones that are new, so like that the dehi, or the embodied one which is inside the body, it goes through phases of childhood, youth, and old age in the body, and at the time of death it passes on to another body. So it's a very natural cycle for in the yoga point of view. The wise therefore don't grieve at death. So, and there's the analogy of the worn out clothes. Vasansi jirnani yata vihaya navani grhnati naro parani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani sanyati navani dehi. As a person casts off all these worn out clothes and puts on new ones, dehi, it casts off worn out bodies and enters ones that are new. And the word Purusha, we saw, it means, you can interpret it two ways. The Purusha is the lord of the city or place we call the body. It's also that which lives in the city of 9 gates. That is so, and it also, the Shastra say that embodied one lives in the city of 9 gates. Why 9 gates? There are 9 place openings in the body, 7 in the head. 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, mouth, 2 ears make up 7, and the 2 for elimination. So there are 9 gates. So it's called the 9-gated city. Navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan na kartrutvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhu. So the embodied one, it lives in this body of 9 gates, and what it does is it neither creates actions nor does it create agency for people to do things. Okay. Okay, so there are many names. I think we stopped at that point. There are many names for Purusha. So these come in the ancient texts, Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutras. Different names are used. The most common you would see, so Purusha, we saw what it means. The other common is Atma, which means the self. Drashta, which means the seer. Today we'll see quite a bit about why it's called the seer. Then the Dehi, the embodied, what is inside Deha's body, what is inside this body, the embodied one. Chitti Shakti, the power of pure consciousness. The consciousness, the power of pure consciousness. It's also called the Swami because it is the owner or the master of this body. It's also called aprati samkramaya. Patanjali uses this term. He says Swami aprati samkramaya, that which is unmoving. Then the chit, the ultimate consciousness, and there are many more. Okay, so we saw all this. We are doing all these poses, balancing pose, that pose, this pose. Sometimes it is good to remind us why we are doing all this. Why yoga? Patanjali defines this in the second sutra. First sutra, he says, okay, now I'm going to expound what yoga is all about. And the second sutra, he says, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So we will listen to Jayashree chant that.
योगश्चित्तवृत्तिनिरोधः.
Okay, nirodha, it's like a strong word, restraining or like curbing. What do you curb? You are curbing the chitta vrittis, the fluctuations of the mind. The mind, we saw this analogy yesterday. The mind, it's like a big movie theater. So there's a big screen. Patanjali calls the screen Pratyaya with this big surround sound speakers, everything. So the entire thing is called Pratyaya. Constantly images and sounds are being played. And we'll see this example soon. In this big movie theater, there is somebody, one spectator silently watching, and that is the Purusha. So yoga is restraining the activities of the mind. And why do we do this? Um, then why do we try? Why are we trying to restrain all these vrittis? Then tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. Drashta is the seer. He resides, or he or she or it resides in its own true nature.
तदा द्रष्टुः स्वरूपेव स्थानम्.
So, okay, so what does this mean? The seer resides in its own true nature. So this is what it means. This, because of the images and everything on the silver screen, we are not able to see the reality of what's happening. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this is the silver screen. Now, when all the images, bright lights, everything is gone, the Purusha is able to see its reflection in the screen. This is the very precious moment. And that is the reason why we are doing yoga. Okay, tada drashtu, when the vritti sees, the drashta resides in its own true nature. Otherwise, what does it do? It sees all this action, drama, everything, and it's just jarring. It's just, it's not able to reside in its own peaceful nature. And what happens if the vrittis do not cease? Vritti sarupyam itaratra. So Patanjali says,
वृत्तिसारूप्यमितरत्र.
Rupam means form. Sarupam is the form that comes with the vrittis. All these things happening on the screen. The Purusha starts identifying. Sarupyam means along with, it identifies with all these things played on the screen and the music, everything. And this results in imprint, samskaras, in another part of the mind. And it's cause of all problems, the rebirth, all those things. So this is you want the Purusha to reside in its own true nature. Then Patanjali, he says that in the third sutra. Then he goes through 195 minus 3, 192 sutras, and finally he comes to the last sutra, 196th or 195th. He says, Purushartha shunyanam gunanam pratiprasavaha swarupa pratishtava chiti shaktiriti. What it means is this: once all that happens, the Purusha resides in its own true nature. He says, it's so it's easy to say, but I've given you the manual, what all you need to do to get to that state. And that's what the entire Yoga Sutra is about. In the third sutra, he says, Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. The seer resides in its own true nature when the vritti sees, and he describes everything. And then finally he says, when the purpose to the Purusha having ended, the gunas, these are the tendencies, they recede into the nature, prakriti, and there is liberation. Then you're not born again.
पुरुषार्थशून्यानां गुणानां प्रतिप्रसवः कैवल्यम् स्वरूपप्रतिष्ठा वा चितिशक्तिरिति.
Here he uses the word Chiti Shakti, the power of pure consciousness. Okay, so this Purusha is a mere observer in this movie theater. So this is the analogy, the lone spectator in the movie theater. The Chitta, it's one portion of the mind. We saw the different portions of the mind last time. There is, even though in English we just say brain and the mind, in the yoga philosophy, the mind consists of various portions. It's distributed throughout the body. Your body stores memories. Memory is not just in the brain. The body, there are certain, because when you see certain situations, sometimes your stomach will feel queasy, or some people, their knees start hurting. It's very common. There are a lot of things happen. So body stores a lot of memory. So memory is distributed throughout the body. So then there is the ahankara, the ego. Then there's the manas, is all this. And then there is the chitta, which is this movie theater that we are seeing. Okay. And the buddhi. The buddhi is the intellect. That's the cerebrum. That is the one which says, okay, do this, do that, this is bad, this is good, all this compartmentalizing. This is the intellect. And the intellect is something we use strongly to our advantage in making discriminative decisions. Okay? So now, so the Purusha is a mere observer, and the Chitta is that portion of the mind. It's this big movie theater. The entire movie theater thing is Chitta, and that's where it's the closest to the Purusha. When you're asleep, in deep sleep, all the other portions are off, but the Chitta is always on. The Pratyaya is the screen and speakers. The Purusha is the lone spectator. And we saw the Purusha, that's the indweller. What about the Prakriti? The Prakriti has three qualities: Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. It consists of elements of matter and the body, elements of matter, and the Indriyas, the senses. So let's listen to this. Says Prakasha Kriya Sthiti Sheelam Bhutendriyatmakam Bhoga Apavargartam Drishyam. The purpose of this Prakriti is to provide bhoga, experience, or you can say pleasure, and apavarga, path for liberation to the seer. Drishyam is what is seen. That is the role. Oops.
प्रकाशक्रियास्थितिशीलम् भूतेन्द्रियात्मकम् भोगापवर्गार्थम् दृश्यम्.
So Patanjali uses the terms prakasha, kriya, and sthiti. So there are three gunas. Gunas, they're divided into three types: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Patanjali, it's a scientific document. I've already said. The two greatest yogic texts are the Yoga Sutras, the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is considered a yoga shastra. Iti tatsatiti Srimad Bhagavad Gita su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidya. It's called a Brahma Vidya Yoga Shastre. So it's called a Yoga Shastra. Then there's the Yoga Sutras. In Yoga Sutras, it's a scientific, like a summary. Bhagavad Gita is a song. Gita itself means a song. In the Bhagavad Gita, he uses the term Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. In Yoga Sutras, Patanjali uses the term Prakasha, Kriya, Sthiti. Prakasha is lightness. That is the pure Sattva guna. Then Rajas is activity, turbulence. You're going with a lot of intensity at something. That is Kriya, activity. Rajas and Tamas is dullness. You are callous to like feelings of others. All those fall under the Tamas. Tamas also has sometimes it's dullness, but we also need dullness to sleep. It also has its role. But apparently, when you cross all over, when you reach the state of liberation, you don't need these gunas. You are past that. Okay. So the nature of Prakriti is to provide experience and liberation to the Purusha. Bhoga, which is experience, often pleasurable, and Apavarga is liberation. What is the nature of the Purusha?
द्रष्टादृशिमात्रः शुद्धोऽपि प्रत्ययानुपश्यः
This is actually a very important sutra. It is also talked throughout in the Bhagavad Gita. Drashta Drishi Matraha. What it means is that the seer is quietly sitting and just seeing. That's why it's called a seer. He doesn't do, or she or it doesn't do any activity. It has only the power of seeing. And it is very pure, innate nature. That's why when people blame themselves, oh, I'm bad, I have all the bad things, the interior, the Purusha is very pure. But unfortunately, it is having this baggage around it, the samskaras from the past karmas, and it's bringing it along with it. That is what causes the problem. So even though it is pure, it says Shuddho api, even though it's pure, Pratyaya anupashyaha. Anu means follow. It Pratyaya, the screen, it follows the contents of the screen. Poor thing. So whatever is being played, that's why they say you have to keep the mind as calm as possible, because if you put a lot of bad things, this Purusha sees that, and there's samskaras form in the mind, and it takes it to the next janma. So this is how the cycle of births and rebirths happen. Okay, now we'll see the relationship between the Purusha and the Prakriti.
स्वस्वामिशक्त्योः स्वरूपोपलब्धिहेतुः संयोगः
Swami is the Purusha, and what it says is that Swa is the owned. Sa Swami Shaktyo, the power of the owned and the owner, can only be known. Okay, Swarupa Upalaptihi means the true nature of the power of the owner and the owned can only be known through their union. Otherwise, Purusha alone, you can't associate anything with that. Body alone, it's just dead, inert. But when it comes together, that is when you know each power, the physical strength or the intellect, all these things, you know only through their union. So this is called the Purusha Prakriti conundrum, because each itself has no power, but when they come together, it, they are powerful. But this union, now people, the mind starts thinking the Purusha and the Prakriti are the same, but they are different. The body is just an inert thing. The Purusha will go to another body, but the mind starts thinking, oh, this is all I am. So that causes confusion. But this is called the conundrum. The word they use is a conundrum. Each by itself is, we can't understand. It's only when you bring them together you understand the power, but bringing them together causes the confusion. So it needs a lot of discrimination to see through this. So it says the analogy of the black ink again. This is what Vyasa gives. The Purusha, it's like ink. The Prakriti is like the paper. So it's only when you put the ink right, you can actually, everything happens. Each itself, the black ink on a dark background would have no meaning. So you need both to express things. The example given by Vyasa. But the cause of the union, thinking they're both one and the same, is due to lack of knowledge.
तस्य हेतुरविद्या
Tasya hetu means the cause, is avidya means lack of knowledge. Then the Purusha starts thinking, how did I start getting identified with you? Because of ignorance.